You all set, Michelle?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Michelle Larea, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm also a certified diabetes educator. I work at Aventura Hospital at our diabetes and nutrition outpatient program, where we do all kinds of diabetes and nutrition related education, nutrition counseling, diabetes classes, support groups, health fairs, and many other services. I'm so excited to be here today. I was asked to speak about boosting the immune system, especially during this time of the COVID-19. So hopefully what I'll share with you guys today will help you with, boosting that immune system, staying healthy, and hopefully help prevent, the acquiring it or, even the severity of the condition. So I'm gonna switch over to screen share so that I can go over to my presentation. And please let me know if you guys can see it in a few minutes. Share and okay, we're good.
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so what we're going to talk about a little bit today, we're going to understand nutrition concepts as they relate to supporting optimal immune system function. We're also going to learn the importance of building resilience and reducing the risk of impaired immunity. And we're going to identify nutrients present in whole foods that can support optimal immunity. Let me move this a little bit to the side so I can see my slides. Okay. All right, so resilience. So resilience is, it allows our body to be able to remain in a state of health and recover more quickly after exposure to viruses, detrimental bacteria, and toxins. So it really, building that resilience is very, very important because ultimately that's gonna tell us kind of like if we're gonna bounce back from after being exposed to a virus or a bacteria. And it's really, it's not something that we can just, let's say, build overnight. It's not a short-term thing. We build it over a long period of time based on our lifestyle and our nutrition. But the reality is that our mental health and our immune system are dependent on that strong and resilient microbiome. And the microbiome is all of that group of billions and trillions of bacteria and viruses and parasites and all kinds of microorganisms that live in our gut. And it turns out that they play a very important role in boosting that immune system. So, as I just mentioned, we have trillions of microbes that inhabit our intestines, and they form a very complex ecological community that influences our physiology and our susceptibility to diseases. So really, we having a good, healthy microbiome is really key to helping boost our immune system. It turns out that most of our front line of defense happens in our gut, and our gut has the ability to be able to fight a lot of these exposures. Um, the immune system defense starts with really, we have our our front line of defense, which are our skin and our mucosal membranes. And of course, we are protected by the skin, that helps a lot, that helps prevent the, the development of, viruses and bacteria, but also inside in our digestive system, the mucosal membranes, we have a lot of biochemicals in there, natural biochemicals that help fight all of these off. And those are our saliva, our mucus, our sweat, gastric acids, and all of that can help us as the first line of defense of being able to you know, defeat these invaders. Now, how can we build a stronger immune system with nutrition? Well, it turns out that optimal nutrition supports the function of immune cells and the response to pathogens and inflammation. And especially there's certain nutrients that boost our immune system so much more. And in general, the key, um, and it's not any single micronutrient, but it's a a multitude and a diversity of these different nutrients. And that's why having a good, well-balanced diet that includes all of these different nutrients is so important, because they all play a big role in boosting and helping our immune system. So, in this case, it includes antioxidants like vitamin A and C and D and E. And a lot of them play a lot of different roles because they're not only antioxidants, but they boost our immune system. They help it, increase our inflammatory response to different invaders. Also, vitamins B6, B12, B9. These help, especially in our gut, and it helps us to keep that healthy microbial intestinal microbiota. And then we have zinc, and zinc has so many also immune boosting properties. And I'm going to talk also about all of these individually in the next few slides. And acetylcysteine as well, and quercetin and omega-3 fatty acids. So we really want to focus on obtaining as much as we can these nutrients from the foods that we eat. So before we get into the actual foods, we want to understand that we have two different immune systems. And one is the innate, and then we have also the adaptive immune system. And the innate immune system is that immediate immune system, which is the first response to any invading pathogen, or in response to an injury. So, just an example of that's kind of like when we have an invading pathogen or injury, that's where our body will start releasing, dendritic cells and mast cells and natural killer cells and neutrophils, and that's going to be our way of the body to be able to kill that pathogen, start a repair, and ultimately, as well, eventually will lead to signaling that adaptive immune response, which we're going to talk about that in a minute. So just an example of an innate immune response, that would be, let's say we catch a virus, and then right away we start having runny nose, coughing, itchy eyes, and that's that immune response. And then we have the adaptive immune response. And the adaptive immune response have the ability to specifically recognize a pathogen and then to remember it if we're exposed to it ever again. So basically, this is a much slower and longer process. And what happens is that, let's say that we're exposed to a virus. For example, you get chickenpox. Well, we used to get chickenpox. Now there's a vaccine for it, right? But most of us, I think, on this call are still in the generation where we didn't get the vaccine, and then we actually had exposure to chickenpox, got chickenpox ourselves, and then our body created antibodies eventually, and now if we get exposed to chickenpox again, we won't have that severe response like we had the first time. Okay, so that's the adaptive immune response, and ultimately, that's where this whole thing is coming, where either most of us might get the coronavirus, or we're waiting for that vaccine to be released, because at the end of the day, once we've created those antibodies that we can actually fight the disease, the virus itself. I also want to talk about gut-associated lymphoid tissues, which is, in short, it's term GALT. The majority of our immune cells within our body are actually located in our gut. And the gut, and it's called gut-associated lymphoid tissues. This is a tissue that is in the inner mucosal layer of our digestive system, and it communicates regularly with nearby gut microbiome, which is that bacteria, viruses, parasites, and mollusks that live in our gut. And it's really very important because it's very, very active. It turns out that what we've learned is that to be able to optimize that GALT response, we must pay attention to the health of our microbiome. And if we have an imbalanced microbiome, if we have a more pro-inflammatory type of bacteria and their viruses, those immune organs cannot function at its best. And so we really want to pay attention to what's going on in our GI tract. And in order to be able to optimize that, we want to be able to include certain types of foods or certain types of nutrients in our diet. So some key nutrients that we want to also keep in mind is that we want to have adequate micronutrient intake from real and nourishing foods, because this is going to help both prevent and at the same time help us recover from an infection. So when we're exposed to pathogens, the body may lose a lot of micronutrients, vitamin A, C, E, calcium, zinc, iron, and this will cause our immune system to become increasingly active. So replacing these micronutrients from real foods on a regular basis is very important. Now, I want to talk a little bit about one of the first line of defense when it comes to our diet, and those are probiotics. And what are probiotics? The definition of probiotics is that they're live microorganisms which, when consumed in adequate amounts, can confer a health benefits to the host. Meaning, when we eat foods that have probiotics, they're going to help boost that immune system. How? Because it turns out that GALT, what I had just mentioned before, serves as the largest immune organ in our body. About 80% of our immune system is actually located in our gut. That's a lot. So if we have an imbalanced microbiome going on, then our immunity is not going to be able to work at its maximum effect. And it turns out that those bacteria, viruses, parasites, that microbiome, we have so many trillions in our gut that about 3 to 5 pounds of weight of ours is actually that microbiome, which is a lot if you think about it. Imagine 5 pounds just of live bacteria in there. So what we feed those bacteria and what we encourage, how we encourage the growth of healthy bacteria is so much more important. So probiotic rich foods, we can get probiotics from food that we eat. So some common probiotic rich foods are kombucha, which is a drink that is very high in those probiotics. Sauerkraut, which is a very common food. You can find those in most supermarkets. Kimchi is not so easy to find, although it's becoming a little bit easier. But that's a Korean type of fermented food. It has a very unique flavor, and it's not everybody loves it, but it really can be very, very healthy for you. Kefir is a type of like a mixture between a yogurt and milk, let's say, because it's much more liquid than yogurt itself, and it's very packed with those probiotics. So I really like kefir a lot, but not everybody does well with dairy. So that can be, even if you have issues with dairy, many times you can tolerate kefir because of those bacteria that are in there. unpasteurized pickled vegetables. So if you're into pickling, this is really, really wonderful, and it has great benefits, health benefits. And yogurt from dairy or non-dairy yogurt sources as well. So all of these can be they can be awesome to be able to boost that good bacteria in our gut. Probiotics, of course, can also come in, in capsules or pills forms or powder forms, but we can get it beautifully from our food as well. Now, talking about probiotics is important, but talking about prebiotics is just as important. And what are prebiotics? Prebiotics are a substrate that is selectively utilized by the host microorganisms, conferring to a health benefit. What is it? Basically, it's fiber. It's what feeds the probiotics. So prebiotics is what feeds those good, healthy bacteria probiotic foods. What are prebiotic-rich foods? It's garlic, onions, leek, asparagus, apples, bananas, especially the bananas that are more on the green side. Organic apple cider vinegar. Anything that is vegetables are very high in probiotics. Most fruits, berries are very high in probiotics. So really having prebiotics is very high in prebiotics. So having these high fiber foods is very, very important. And now that we're talking about prebiotics, if we think back to the foods some of the foods that I was mentioning with the probiotics, like for example, the sauerkraut. So that is actually considered a symbiotic. And a symbiotic is a food that has both probiotics and prebiotics mixed together. So we have let's say in sauerkraut, we have the probiotics, which is the bacteria in there, or the fermented from the fermentation. And then we also have those prebiotics, which is the fiber that is naturally found in that vegetable. So having symbiotics is really, really, really good for your body. Okay. Next, bone broth. Bone broth is becoming very popular in recent years. And it really turns out that our grandmothers did know what was best for us. So why? Because it turns out that bone broth actually can help support that gut. It really can help strengthen that mucosa cell in our digestive system. And it also contains NAC, N-acetylcysteine. It's a compound found in many actually bronchitis medications. So it really works as an expectorant, and it can help break up that phlegm and mucus in the chest. So it's very, very, very good, especially during this season. Having bone broth can be made at home or it can be store-bought. If you're going to make bone broth at home, you want to start off with some bones of chicken, turkey, or beef. You want to get some water. You want to use also some type of acidic compound, like apple cider vinegar works very well, or lemon works very well. And of course, we want to use some vegetables in there and herbs and spices. But the key is, I think somebody's mic is on, and I don't know. I'm in the video. If it can be muted off. Regine, can you mute?
Yes, I'm working. I'm just trying to find who the person is because it's different with the screen, with you sharing the screen. Just give me 1
second. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I think it was muted. Beautiful. Okay. So when it comes to bone broth, actually, so before you add the vegetables and the herbs and spices, you do want to actually cook the bones in water with apple cider vinegar or lemon. And you actually, the key to the bone broth, creating that bone broth soup, is cooking at a low temperature for at least 24 to 72 hours. So it's a long process to make bone broth soup. Once you've cooked it for enough time, for long enough, then you're actually extracting all of that goodness from those bones. And then I would say towards the end, maybe like the last hour or half an hour, that's where you want to add those vegetables and herbs and spices, or you can just use that bone broth to then use as a base for other soups. So bone broth is really, really wonderful for you. Bone broth also contains a lot of collagen and gelatin, and this is really excellent in healing the gut as well. Okay, vitamin D.
Michelle,
Yeah.
sorry. Hi. Do you have a good recipe you could send us that we could follow?
I'm sure we can post something when we post
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I have another question.
Okay.
I'm more interested in like seeing if you can recommend some store-bought capsules for probiotics. If we don't necessarily like kimchi or sauerkraut that are very bitter in flavor.
Can I recommend? Okay, I'm asking here my marketing person if it's okay for me to recommend. So there's wonderful probiotics out there on the market.
I got one already by Rachel, who's also listening. So great, thank you.
But basically, what you're looking for, I mean, when it comes to any supplements in general, first of all, you want to, check with your healthcare professional to see if you really need a supplement. And then if you're going to really buy something, then you want to do something that is a reputable brand. Okay, that's the key here. Because not everything is created equal, and there's definitely a lot out there that is not really what it's supposed to be.
But do they have to be refrigerated, or they can also be not refrigerated?
I personally, I prefer refrigerated versions of probiotics. But there's risk with that as well, because it could have been staying out, for long periods of time, and then a lot of that is gone as well, because it can get affected if it's left out for long periods of time. So for sure, buying it from a reputable place, number one, and number two, that it's a reputable, well-known brand. And really, there's a website, the Environmental Working Group is great, and Consumer Lab is really great, and they do like third-party testing to make sure quality is good, so you can check those out. And like, for example, buying, let's say, at Whole Foods or the Vitamin Shop or GNC can be great. But let's say you want to buy something from Amazon and it's supposed to be refrigerated, and we don't know how many days it's been out. So you have to be very careful when buying supplements, that's for sure. But very good point. Okay, let's move on. Vitamin D. Vitamin D has antiviral, antimicrobial, and pro-hormone properties. It has been shown to protect against upper respiratory infections by calming the pathogens and fighting against bacteria and viruses. Vitamin D is a super, super, super important nutrient. And from my experience and my patients, I feel like, I don't know, 90%, 99% of my patients are deficient of vitamin D. It's very, very common to be deficient in vitamin D. And if you don't know what your vitamin D levels are, it's a very simple blood test. It's a routine blood test. You can add when you go for your next, annual checkup or routine checkup. You can have doctor test vitamin D levels. You really want vitamin D to be at an optimal level around 50-ish. The range, the lab ranges for normal, I think, is between about 30 to 100. What I've been reading is around 50 is kind of the ideal zone. And vitamin D in general, I mean, we can get vitamin D. We can actually make vitamin D ourselves by exposure to the sun, but unfortunately, we're not exposed enough to the sun, because you would have to be really sitting in the sun, kind of in a bathing suit, most days for a good hour a day. And we're not doing really that, especially when we're using, sunblock and things like that. So we can get vitamin D from foods like wild caught fish, like salmon, and other fatty fish like mackerel and sardines. And the key, and when you're buying, fatty fish and cans, you want to make sure that it's a BPA free cans or pouches if it's possible. Also, we can get it from pastured eggs. Pastured is different than pasteurized. So pastured eggs are basically eggs that come from free range chickens that feed from grass, kind of thing. They're much more expensive, so you have to weigh that out. Beef liver, cod liver oil, mushrooms, and of course, vitamin D can be also taken as a supplement. If you're going to take a supplement of vitamin D, you want to make sure it's vitamin D3 form. And depending on your vitamin D levels, then, you can take from 1,000 IUs a day to 10,000 IUs a day. And there's doctors that even prescribe a once a week 50,000 IUs. That's a once a week therapy. But you want to get those vitamin D levels to that optimal zone. Okay. There was a study that showed that supplementing with vitamin D decreased the risk for respiratory tract infections by 50% in those that were deficient, and 10% for those with favorable levels of vitamin D. So definitely being deficient in vitamin D increases our risk for developing diseases. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is widely recognized as a very powerful antioxidant. It supports both the innate and the adaptive immune responses and supports the body to curb the stress response. Vitamin C is, as long as we're eating a well-rounded, nutrient-dense diet, that's a key, nutrient-dense. If we're including both fruits and vegetables of all different colors on a regular basis, then we should be getting the recommended amount of vitamin C per day. But the reality is that a lot of us are not getting, enough of that. So we have to be very mindful of it. And vitamin C not only helps, support that innate and adaptive immune responses, but it also supports our adrenal glands. Our adrenal glands actually store the most amount of vitamin C in our entire body. And it can help through the metabolism of cortisol, which is our primary stress-related hormone. And it helps curb, that stress response. So really, low levels of vitamin D in clinical research were associated with an increased risk of susceptibility to viruses and infections when there's a compromised immune system. So we really want to make sure that we're adequate consuming vitamin C from foods, or if not, then vitamin C supplement can be a good option as well. The only thing that you want to be careful when it comes to vitamin C supplementation is that you want to take it in small divided doses, and keep in mind that large doses of vitamin C can lead to very soft stool. So if there is an issue already with people having GI issues, adding a lot of vitamin C will exacerbate those GI issues. Okay, zinc. Zinc is a very powerful antioxidant.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between just regular vitamin C and ester C?
It's just different forms of vitamin C. There's really many different forms of vitamin C. So it's just different, the way that they're processed or how they're extracted from different types of foods. So ester vitamin C works very well. Ascorbic acid is the most like the most commercially available one. I personally, I like buffered vitamin C because I feel that it gives less GI issues. Regina, I think that somebody's
Yeah,
muted.
no, I don't see. Yeah, it was Carla who's asked the question. I
Okay.
think we should wait, guys. If we can wait to after Michelle's presentation, I promise you we're gonna give you guys all the time to ask all the questions you guys need. So if you have any questions, just write them down. I promise you we will go as long as we need to ask Michelle the questions you need when she's done.
Okay. Thank you, Regine. And we're okay with time?
Yes, we're definitely okay with time. You guys can go as long as you need to, so no worries, okay? We'll have
Beautiful.
another class after.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. So zinc. So zinc, I was saying, is a powerful antioxidant and is required to activate certain immune cells. Zinc deficiency is actually associated with an impaired immune function and increased risk for infections such as pneumonia. Zinc deficiency is also associated with a decreased immune cell development and also decrease in innate immune cell function and adaptive immunity. So being deficient in zinc is definitely puts us at a higher risk. I know that there's a lot going on related to zinc, and there's no zinc on the shelves right now. And that was more of this that came out about how Plaquenil or can in conjunction with zinc can help could help with coronavirus. I mean, we don't have enough research about it, but there's definitely some very promising results with that. And it turns out that what's going on with that is that zinc actually, so zinc inside of the mitochondria of the cell, what they're finding, there was a study that found that it can actually block the replication process of when the virus goes into our mitochondria, and then our body confuses it like if it's our own RNA or our own DNA and starts replicating it. So what they found is that zinc can actually block that replication process. But the problem is that zinc is an ion, and zinc cannot cross the cell membranes into our mitochondria of our cells. So what they actually, in another study, and this was back in 2010, I think, what they found is that hydroxychloroquine, which is, I think that's what it is, Plaquenil, can actually kind of grab onto that zinc and transport it into that mitochondria. So that's where that comes from. And I know, I mean, I don't know personally of anybody that has used it, but I've heard from personal stories that it's helped a lot of people. But that's something that that is to be discussed with your healthcare provider. Now, zinc can be found in foods as well, and the foods that have the highest levels of zinc are seafood, like crabs and lobsters and oysters, grass-fed beef, organic chicken, especially the dark meat of the organic chicken, raw pumpkin seeds, yogurt, raw cashews, and chickpeas. So these are very, common foods that we can all, be consuming. And even, something as easy as cashews or pumpkin seeds or chickpeas, those especially, I know that we're very limited to what we can kind of get right now in the stores, but those are shelf stable items. So those are always available to get. Now, supplementing zinc, you want to be very cautious when taking zinc, because turns out that study shows that taking greater than 100 milligrams per day can actually increase your risk for prostate cancers, fevers, chills, headaches. So supplementation, you have to be careful with supplementing. You know, that's why if we can get it from foods, that's the best thing. Also, long-term zinc supplementation can also cause a copper deficiency because zinc and copper fight for the same receptors in our body. So we want to be very mindful of all of that. Okay, quercetin. Quercetin is a very, let me tell you, this is a really, really superfood, and it's not talked about enough. Quercetin is a polyphenol derived from plants and has been shown to reduce the incidence and severity of upper respiratory tract infections and may provide additional immune supporting effects when combined with vitamin C. It turns out that quercetin in animal and in vitro studies has shown that it actually biologically it can actually be anti-carcinogenic, anti-inflammatory, and antiviral as well. So quercetin is very, very, very powerful. And quercetin we can get from foods, especially onions, shallots. Those have a lot of quercetin. Grapes, apples, berries. Actually, in onions, in the highest level of quercetin is actually found in the outer layer of the onion, in the outside. And most of us actually cut it off and throw it to the garbage, right? That outside layer. And it turns out that really that's one of the most potent places to find that quercetin. So what I would recommend is to wash it off really well. And then if you're making soups, you can add the whole onion or cut it up into chunks, a whole onion with that outer layer. And then of course, before you're gonna serve the soup, you might wanna take it out because it's not very beautifully present, let's say, the presentation of it. But it really is very powerful. Also, the highest concentration of quercetin is actually found in capers, raw capers. So those little tiny little round green capers, that's actually one of the biggest superfood that you can eat. And it's delicious. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love capers, and I add it to salads, and I chop it up and I add it to my stir-fried vegetables, and you can add it to pesto sauce, and you can add it to pasta, and you can add it to all different types of things. So that's really, really great. Tomatoes, nuts and seeds have lots of quercetin, black tea, oranges, honey, red onions. So brassica vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all of those. So include a whole food diet, guys. Okay, omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are a form of polyunsaturated fatty acids that are essential. What does essential mean? It means that our body cannot produce these fatty acids. We can only obtain it from food or from supplementation, of course. Omega-3 fatty acids serve as nourishing calories and are primary building blocks for the immune system. The primary omega-3 fatty acids that are bioavailable in humans are EPA and DHA. EPA and DHA are those omega-3s that we can get from I lost my train of thought, sorry, from fish sources. And so it's very important to have fish in our diet. Now, that being said, a lot of people can be allergic to fish or shellfish. So, you know, for people that are allergic or that don't, or for other reasons choose not to eat animal products like fish, there is vegetarian sources, plant sources of omega-3, which are precursors to EPA and DHA, meaning our body actually, so if you eat foods like, let's say, ground flax seeds and hemp seeds and walnuts, those have the alpha-linoleic acid. Our body cannot use that alpha-linoleic acid as it is. our body will have to actually convert it into EPA and DHA in order to do that function. So just keep that in mind, you know. And the beautiful thing about the omega-3 fatty acids is that not only that it boosts the immune system, but it also helps decrease inflammation, especially for bowel disease. It can help with depression. It can help with prevent cancer. It can help with cardiovascular disease. It can help with rheumatoid arthritis. So omega-3 fatty acids are super important that we need to be consuming in our diet. You want at least 2 to 4 servings of a fatty fish per week, which is a lot. And you know, people are not consuming, you know, fish 2 to 4 times per week. So sometimes a supplement of fish omega-3 fatty acids can be a good idea as well if you're not consuming it. Ginger. Ginger has antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral properties. Ginger root can be purchased at any grocery store or farmer's market. It can be found in the freezer section as well. And this can be stored in the refrigerator, in the freezer as well. You can use it where you grate it into stir fries. You can simmer it in water and make tea out of it. It's very, very, very anti-inflammatory. You can add it to smoothies. You can add it to soups. You can steep it in almond milk and add spices and make a chai type of thing from it. Really, it's beautiful because it actually also helps lower CRP and TNF alpha and interleukin 6, which are all inflammatory. Those can be tested as inflammatory markers, and it can help decrease those. It can also help boost that immune response. So, you know, having ginger in your diet is a really, really great idea. Also, many grocery stores have ginger already in little cubes frozen. So that's really easy that you can just add it to your dishes without having to do much with that. But ginger is not expensive and it's very easy to find nowadays. Garlic. Garlic can help combat there's so much research on there that it helps combat infectious diseases, and this has been used for centuries. This is not something new. We know this for many, many, many years. It's been used to treat and prevent respiratory infections. Also, garlic contains a compound called allicin and allicin. And the thing with this, these are the compounds that actually are those antimicrobial properties. But in order to be able to get that allicin out, you actually have to cut up a fresh garlic clove. And you want to, after you chop it up or cut it up into pieces or mash it up, you want to let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. That's when those compounds become active, okay? So it's actually important to use fresh garlic. There's some controversy about if garlic, once you cook it, if these properties are destroyed, and they can't be destroyed once they're cooked. So you want to include fresh raw garlic in your diet as well, okay? Not only cooked, but definitely cooked is better than nothing at all, okay? Now, if you're taking a blood thinner, you want to definitely talk about your doctor about adding more garlic to your diet, because garlic is actually naturally a blood thinner itself. So you want to just be careful to not start eating tons of garlic, especially if you're on a blood thinner. And even if you add 1 or 2 fresh garlic cloves a day, it's going to be really wonderful because it's going to be antimicrobial and it's going to help boost that good bacteria in your gut. Herbs and adaptogens. Fresh and organic herbs are a great way to include antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral properties in cooking or in beverages. If you can add fresh herbs or even dried herbs, the more herbs you can include, the better it is. It really does such amazing things when we're cooking with it. That's why traditional Chinese medicine includes so much herbs because they have really amazing antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. So include thyme and oregano and rosemary and basil and cilantro and all these different herbs in your cooking and in your diet. And adaptogens are often used to support the immune health and to increase resilience. And those are herbs like astragalus, well, actually astragalus and different mushrooms. Those are types of mushrooms that helps boost that. Ashwagandha, holy basil, and those are typically used in supplement forms. But of course, mushrooms you can use for cooking and really are really wonderful in boosting that immune system. Some lifestyle practices that we want to make sure that we're including regularly. We want to stay well hydrated. Drinking plenty of water supports your immune system by aiding the body and eliminating toxins that contribute to illness. Also keep in mind that most of our weight is made out of water, so we really want to make sure that we're getting enough water hydration in our day-to-day diet. We also want to make sure that we are having good quality sleep. I think this is very important, especially nowadays with all this stress related to the coronavirus. People are not sleeping well, or are on their phones or on the TVs for hours and then can't go to sleep. And it becomes a real problem. And restless sleep is actually one of the biggest things that lowers your immune system. It also makes us gain weight. It just inhibits our life in our health in so many different ways. So really aiming to at least 7 to 9 hours of quality rest per night is very, very important. Especially turning off devices at least 2 hours before going to bed, or at least putting those in night mode night modes where it's not the blue light is very important, because otherwise it really affects the sleep. Talking about breathing, I'm taking a big breath myself. Deep breathing. Not only is deep breathing excellent for calming the mind and body during times of stress, it supplies more oxygen to the body, including the digestive system. The increased blood flow encourages intestinal response action and works to enhance overall digestion. So doing deep breathing techniques is really, really important to help boost that immune system. Taking time to breathe. There's some wonderful apps nowadays that can help you with breathing techniques and exercises, meditation as well. So focusing on your breath is a really great way of boosting that immune system. Physical activity, finally. The behavior of almost all immune cells population in the bloodstream is altered in some way during and after exercise. Aim for a variety of regular, enjoyable movements. Especially now that we're so limited to, going out. A lot of us can't go to the gym anymore. Everything's closed. But really, exercising on a regular basis is really important. Getting, aim for at least, 30 minutes minimum of walking per day. And that can be around the block of where you live, or even, within you're inside. If you're in a building and you can't get out, walking inside is a great thing as well. Or doing videos online, chair exercises. YouTube has so much on there on content for exercises that you can do from home. Myself and my family, we're enjoying a lot of those videos. Since I can't go to the gym, I'm doing it at home or walking around in my neighborhood, and I have my kids join in with me, and it's fun, and it's a good way to kill a half an hour or an hour when you're trying to keep those children busy at home. So try some videos at home. Chair exercises, as I mentioned. I just had a patient yesterday and she said to me, "Oh, you have no idea." Oh, so I found out that she has, I think she said she had Xfinity, Comcast, and she said, "Oh yeah, you just talk into it and say, show me exercises," and apparently a whole list of videos come up on the on demand. So that's another great resource as well. So even for people that don't have computers but have cable at home, you could probably find those videos on there as well. I'm almost at the end, so I just wanted to share with you what it actually looks like in a plate when it comes to immune supporting plate. So we have, I don't know if you can see yeah, I don't know if you can see my plate here, but we have some vegetables. So the more colorful and variety of vegetables, the better it is. We want to make sure that we're also including colorful fruits as well. Half of your plate, we want to make sure that are those vegetables and some fruits. Then the other half of the plate, we divide it in half again. A quarter of the plate is those proteins, especially those anti-inflammatory proteins. And okay. And then we have also those whole grains. We have those healthy fats, and hopefully we can continue. Maybe we can do a part 2 on this, on creating those healthy, meals. That would be really fun. And then of course including water and other beverages and those probiotics and prebiotics. And just to wrap up, I just want to mention also setting up SMART goals is very important. If you're going to set up a goal for yourself, make sure that it's something that is SMART goals, that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So we can always work on those as well. So I strongly encourage that. And just to finish up, I'm here for you guys. We have a wonderful center here. We do diabetes and nutrition counseling services. We do diabetes support groups. We're doing telehealth now, which is very unique and new to me. But it's a lot of fun, and my patients are enjoying it a lot. So that's available. Our phone number is on there. Yeah. Okay. And maybe next Thursday we can continue this. We'll try to work on that. But I would love to take next Thursday. Can we take questions now, or we'll wait till next Thursday?
I think we should allow them to ask a few questions since we told them that we would.
Beautiful.
So really good. So if anybody wants to ask any questions of Michelle before we close, this would be a good time to do it. You just have to unmute and then ask Michelle her questions.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle. It's Carla again. I wanted to know, you were mentioning the outer layer of the onion for the quercetin. Do you mean like the onion peel? Or once you peel it, that first layer?
The peel. I'm talking about the peel, the outside. Yeah.
Oh,
Great, yeah?
yummy.
So that's why making soups is really great because, of course, when you're cooking with onions, the peel, you don't want to eat the whole peel. But if you wash it well and you put it into a soup and then you just throw it out before you serve the soup, that's a great way of getting that quercetin. Thank you, Carla. Any other questions? No? That's okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed it, and hopefully next Thursday we'll see you again. And I think, is there some, hold on, because I see the chat, so maybe there's some questions in the chat. Yeah. Should I answer some of the questions in the chat? What do you think, Regina?
I think you should.
Yeah, if there's questions on the chat, I think we should definitely answer some of them.
Oh,
And if
okay.
not, again, everybody, we have a part 2 to this nutrition next week. So definitely join us for part 2. And of course, Michelle will be here to answer any questions. If you have any questions during the week, write them down. So when Michelle comes back next week, you guys also can answer those questions. But go ahead, Michelle, if you have any questions you want to ask.
I think that question that was there was answered already. And then thank you everybody for the beautiful comments. I really appreciate it. And it was a pleasure being here today. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week again.
Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Take care.